Hello, it's Alpha here, and today we are back with the second part of the normal arena meta tier list, and we are going to be focusing on the attack teams this time. If you want to learn more about the normal arena defense teams, you can check out my previous video where I covered the defense teams. And we're going to start the video by looking at the tier list, and then I will also give some ideas about team placements and what heroes to kind of combine into teams. And then I will also show some attack clips of using those teams against some like popular defense teams. So this tier list is going to be only about normal arena and only about the attack heroes. And the reason why I've split the tier list into like attack and defense heroes, once again, is because some of the heroes do work a lot better on the attack side of things than they do work on the defense side of things. So I think it makes sense to have two different tier lists. And if you want to take a look at the tier list and these teams that I'm showing in this video, and also the defense tier list will be on the same document, I will have a link to a separate Google document in the video description, and then you can just go check out the tier lists there. So yeah, here is the attack heroes tier list. I'm not going to be really talking about the bottom three tiers this time either. Like, you can still use them if you want to use them, but like I said, I wouldn't be like focusing on using them. Yeah, so let's start with Faramor. He's kind of placed between the good and the usable tier. Now, I don't necessarily think that you should be trying to use him on the attack side of things, but actually he can be like super effective in the right situation, because he does a lot of like AoE damage with his ultimate, and he also like prevents enemies from healing, etc. So he can like destroy the whole enemy team in a couple of seconds if he gets a good ultimate off. And when you are like attacking enemies, there is a lot more like flexibility when it comes to using heroes. So sometimes there are situations where you can actually use him relatively safely. So in those situations, I think he can be like really good. Then we have Niru and Walker between the good and usable. Niru is just there because if you want to use Aaron on your attack team, you might want to like have someone to block the Lily May's interruption if the defending team is using Lily May, or if you want to use something like Cryonaya, for example, on your attack team, then you probably want someone to block the Lily May's interruption. So Niru is one of the options, but personally I think he's kind of like the worst of the options most of the time, so that's why he's only like at the good / usable tier. And Walker can be good in the attack setting because he can like stun enemies at the start of the fight, but he's kind of like hard to use effectively. And also there are like heroes like Lily May and Cyran and Ludovic who like can't be stunned at the start of a fight, so then he's even harder to use effectively. Then on the good tier we have Harak, Arden and Alsa on like the damage side of things. Harak is one of those heroes that I don't necessarily have that much experience using, so maybe he is better than good, but this is just kind of like my opinion. From my experience, he is kind of hard to use in a sense that he needs kills early on to get going, but then of course if you get those skills he will usually win the fight. But if the enemy has like a good defense, it can be like hard to get those skills going, so that's why I kind of have him on the good tier. And then Arden and Alsa are kind of those heroes that you can use if you are using the Aaron Almost Burst team, but honestly they are kind of like falling out of favor because they're like more flexible and potentially better options. And I don't necessarily think that Arden is bad, but the thing is that there are just like other heroes that you want to build, and you can use like other heroes in place of Arden. And Alsa is kind of similar situation. Then we have on the supports, we have still Hugin. He's just like a decent, providing the shields, providing the crowd control immunity, and then he can also like block the Lily May's interruption if you're using him in combination with something like Cryonaya, for example. And on the tanks we have Toran. Toran is still like a decent tank, but that's pretty much what he does. He's just tanking, so that's why he's only like good. Then we have some heroes that are like better on the attack side of things than they are on the defense side of things. So that would be Lorsan, Nara, and Rowan. Lorsan is just like a decent option if you are running some kind of like burst team, because he like amplifies the damage that your burst heroes are gonna be able to do, so you can quickly burst down some of the key targets. And Nara can be like really effective if the enemy team is running some kind of like hyper carry. So if they're running a team with like Shemira or Cryonaya, for example, or they have like Bonnie in their team, and then if the defense placement is so that your Nara can target, for example, Cryonaya and pull the Cryonaya into your team, and then you can just kill the Cryonaya, and then the enemy team doesn't really have any threats left in their team necessarily. So Nara can be really effective on the attack side of things. And then Rowan is kind of like a squishy hero, so that's why he's not as good on the defense, because he will easily die to something like Aeron Ormus Burst on the defense. But then if you're using him on attack, he can definitely be great at boosting the speed of your something like Cryonaya's ultimate or Shemira's ultimate. You can almost cast it like instantly if you have the help of like Rowan in your team. So that's why he's on the good tier when it comes to attacking. Brian is just there because once again he can block the enemy Lily May's interruption, and I personally like him more than I like Niru for that job, because he can also do like a decent single target damage on the team. And usually if you're using Aeron and Ulmus team, that's gonna be your goal, is kind of to burst down the enemy. So that's why Brian works better in my opinion in that team, and also because he allows you to have the wilder faction bonus if you have Aeron, Brian and Ulmus. Then we have some heroes between the great and good tier. So on the damage dealers, we have Carolina. Personally, I like using Carolina when I'm using Aeron and Ulmus, because she can do a lot of damage like right away. So that kind of fits into the idea of Aeron and Ulmus bursting down the enemies. And then Sylvina can be used to like snipe down some key targets, similar to what kind of Nara can do. So if the enemy team has like Bonnie that you can target with Sylvina, then you can kill the Bonnie before she gets anything done, or if they have something like Cyran placed in a way that you can target with Sylvina, that can also be good. Now, Cyran can be stunned by Sylvina, but she can still do like a good damage on him, so then maybe with the help of Sylvina you can kill the Cyran quickly. Then on the tanks we have like Callan, between the great and good. I don't know if I should be placing him on one or the other. When I'm personally attacking, I don't use tanks, so that's what tanks on the attack side of things is kind of like whatever to me, but like he can be like great at protecting your team, and then he can do the AoE stun. And then Gerda is there because if you are using like assassin type of team, that jumps into the enemy team. And then if the enemy has Ludovic, which they quite often do, Ludovic will stun your melee heroes if they go into his healing area. But Gerda has the ability to remove crowd control effects from allies with the healing spring. So then if you have someone like Sylvina jumping into the enemy team, and then Gerda also jumps into the enemy team, Gerda will start the fight by like stunning the enemies around where she jumps, and then she will also remove the crowd control effect from your allies, so that then your Sylvina is able to like keep on doing the damage at the start of the fight. Or if you're using something like Athalia, for example, Gerda can be great with Athalia as well. And then we have also the Rainier between the good and great, and Gerda and Rainier also kind of work together, because if you are like using Rainier to teleport one of your heroes into the enemy backline, then once again, if there is like Ludovic there, they will be stunned, but then Gerda can remove that stun so that the hero that you are teleporting to the enemy backline will keep on doing damage. Then on the great tier we have Aeron and Ulmus. They are still great when it comes to attacking. They can easily burst down some of the squishy teams that people are running. Like if they have heroes like Cryonaya and Twins and Shemira, for example, or Harak or whatever on their defense team, then Aeron and Ulmus team is usually able to win against those teams. Then I added Shamira into the great tier. I haven't done enough experimenting to really say like how good she is on the attack side of things, but to me, what I tested her on the Pioneer server, she kind of seemed similar to Cryonaya in a sense that if you are able to make her ultimate, she can usually do a lot of damage and potentially win the whole fight. So I would imagine that she is going to be great on the attack side of things. She definitely has her weaknesses and requires like quite specific team for her to work, I feel like, but yeah, probably still going to be a great attack hero at least for a while. Then this time on the great tier, on the attack side of things, we have Satrana and Igor. I think they are like insanely strong attack team if you combine them with Bonnie, and I'm gonna be showing that team later on. But yeah, they are definitely better on the attack side of things than what they are on the defense side of things. Then between the meta and great, I have twins. I mean, they can be like very flexible. There are a lot of attack teams that you can use them with, but I don't necessarily think that you have to use them. And then we have Dunlinger. He is very good on the attack side of things because you can plan how you use him a lot better than you can plan on the defense side of things. Like for example, if the enemy team has like really high level Ludovic, who is usually gonna be able to heal a lot of damage, like if they have like Paragon 4 or Paragon 3 Ludovic, but then you just bring in like even like it doesn't even have to be Supreme Plus Dunlinger, it can even be maybe Epic Dunlinger, but then you use him with the Cure Lock ability, which prevents everyone from healing heroes on the battlefield. That basically makes the enemy team's Ludovic pretty much useless, and then you can usually bring something like Aaron and Ulmus and boost down the enemy teams because they don't actually have a healer in that team anymore. And then Dunlinger can also work well, of course, on the ultimate blocking side of things, like if the enemy has a team that is reliant on a lot of ultimates, like they have twins, Cryonaya, Cyran, Shamira, or whatever, Rowan on their team, then you can just use the ultimate lock in that situation. Yeah, and then the rest of the meta tier is kind of like similar to what the defense side of things look like, except that Cryonaya is here. I think on the defense side of things, she's not as good because she's kind of easy to kill, but once again, you are a lot more flexible on the attack side of things, then Cryonaya will be like super effective in my opinion if you use her in combination with things like Rowan. Okay, then we can take a look at some of the team ideas for attack teams. The first team is going to be the Bonnie, Satrana, Igor team. And this is kind of like the team that I personally use the most because I think it's like a very flexible team and it's able to win against a lot of different teams. Now, if you don't have Igor, you could try using Tassi instead of Igor, but I haven't been using Tassi that much lately, so I don't know exactly how well that version of this team will perform, but I would imagine that it's still fine. But I kind of like Igor more. Yeah, definitely give it a try if you have only Tassi. And then the fourth hero is going to be Talene, if you have Talene. If you don't have Talene, I would maybe try using Cyran, kind of like as the fourth hero, but Talene is probably better option. And then the last hero spot is very flexible. You can use a lot of different heroes here. So if you are using the core team of Igor, Satrana, Bonnie, and Talene, then the last spot that I usually use is gonna be Lilimay or Cyran. But sometimes I also use Rainier, Ludovic, or Sylvina, depending on the enemy team. Now here is kind of like explaining the why this team is good and what are the strengths and weaknesses of the team. So the core idea of this team is just to get your Bonnie's aging debuff on the enemies, and then your Igor will be kind of like the unkillable target on your team. So Igor will just jump around on the battlefield, and then the Bonnie's aging debuff combined with Satrana's burning debuff will kill the enemy team while your Igor is just jumping around. Satrana works really well with the Bonnie because she will start to spread her own burning debuff, and the burning debuff will also reduce the enemy hero's vitality, so the healing effects are not going to be as effective on those heroes. And then, yeah, so those 3 heroes just combine very well. The pros of this team is that it can win against big Paragon disadvantages. It has healing reduction, so Igor and Satrana both have healing reduction. All of these heroes, or at least most of these heroes, will work without them having to ever use their ultimate abilities. So if the enemy team has something like Dunlinger that is blocking the ultimates, or if they have Lily May, it doesn't really matter to this team that much, because they will just interrupt the ultimates, but this team is still able to do the damage. And then Igor is like really good, probably the best hero when it comes to tanking something like Athalia or Harak or Tassi, because like if Athalia, for example, ultimates Igor, he will just not die. But if you're using Tassi in this team, for example, Athalia can potentially one-shot your Tassi. So that's the kind of like the difference between using Tassi and Igor. And Harak is kind of similar in a situation that Igor can actually tank Harak's ultimate quite a long time. So the placement notes are gonna be that you want to place Satrana so that she's kind of like within 2 tiles of most of your heroes, but especially you always want to place her so that she's within 2 tiles of your Bonnie. That is the main thing, because at the start of the fight she will give the burning buff to your allies, and they have to be within 2 tiles of her to get it. Then I usually also place, if I'm using the Igor and Talin, I place both of those heroes in the front so that Igor will get like the burning buff from Talin, and also so that they are gonna be like tanking some of the damage from heroes like Lily May, for example. And then here are some examples of me winning using this team against the enemy teams, and you can see that usually there is like a decent Paragon advantage when it comes to the enemy team. Like there are even some fights with like Paragon 3, Paragon 4 heroes on the enemy team. And these teams that I'm showing here on the enemy side of things are not like just random teams. They are using some of the most meta heroes on the defense side of things.
Come.
And then we have the second kind of theme that I've used a lot over the time, and I still do use it quite a lot. It's gonna be the Aaron and Olmos team. So those two heroes are kind of like the core of the team. Then if the enemy has Lily May on the defense team, you have to use Brian or Niru. Like I said, I prefer Brian. And then you want like 2 DPS heroes. Unless if the enemy team is not using Lily May, then I would not use the Brian and Niru, but I would just pick like third damage dealer for this team. The one thing about this team is that your damage dealer heroes definitely have to be like well invested. So usually they want to have like a high level of EX weapons or like Paragon levels. So if you have something like +10 Carolina, she's not necessarily going to be able to do enough damage to kill the enemies before they are able to recover. The downsides of this team is that if you're not able to kill the enemy team at the start of the fight, you will usually lose because this team doesn't have like any sustain. So the placement notes are gonna be that if you are using Carolina, she has a short range. She has a range of 4. So you actually want to place her at like very front of your team, which probably doesn't sound very natural, but that's just how you want to do it. So that she doesn't have to move during the fight, so she can just focus on doing as much damage as possible. And if the enemy team is using confining spell, you should think like who the confining spell will hit, so that they are kind of like the least important heroes in terms of like doing damage to the enemy team, because you want to burst down the enemy team. And then if you're using something like Arte, for example, you can use the enlightening spell, so that the enemy confining spell will hit only your Arden, but he's protected by the enlightening spell, and then it will hit your Brian. What you could also do is just place your Ulmus at the back and then Arden at the back, so then maybe the confining spell will actually hit your Ulmus and Arden instead, and your Brian is able to do even a bit more damage.
Evil has been...
Cheer. Nothing to be...
Then if you want to use twins on your team, I think there are quite a few different options that you could use them on. I don't have as much information about these teams because personally I mostly use those two previous teams, but these teams can definitely work and you can use them. One option is to use twins with Aaron and Lily May, and then Lily May is gonna be like, kind of like the main damage dealer, but Aaron can definitely do a lot of damage on his own as well. And then, you know, the last spots are quite flexible. Maybe sometimes you want to bring some other tanks, so you can bring like Fresta, for example, so that your Aaron doesn't like die as quickly. And then you can bring a healer into this team if you feel like it, or you can go the route of bringing Ulmus so that your Aaron and Ulmus can like crowd control the enemies more effectively. And then you don't even have to have Brian if the enemy has Lily May. You can just let the Lily May interrupt your Aaron for the first time, and then Aaron can cast the ultimate again quite quickly because like the extra energy from twins and just doing damage. So, but you can also bring Brian to block the first ultimate if you want, or you could use like Athalia as like a third damage dealer in this team. And this team can definitely work against like decent teams. Then one of the options is to use like the Bonnie and Cyran team with usually, I guess, with Talene, but you could also use Fresto if you don't have Talene. Then if you have Cryonaya, I think this can also work very well with Cryonaya. So you want the twins and Cryo. And then if the enemy team is running Lily May, you want someone else to ultimate before you Cryonaya. It is possible that your twins would be the ones who ultimate before your Cryonaya, but you might as well bring someone else into the team who will also ultimate before Cryonaya. So I think Cyran is just a good option in general, but then there are some other heroes that you could also bring, like Shamira or like Brian. Last hero could be Rowan. I think Rowan is really good option so that your Cryonaya can just ultimate as fast as possible. Or if you need more tanking power, it could be something like Callan or Fresto or Gerda. Or if the enemy team has something like Athalia, you could think about bringing Lily May, for example, so that Lily May can maybe interrupt Athalia's ultimate. And then the second team is basically just the same team, but if you don't have Cryonaya, I feel like Shamira can work in similar situations. I haven't done much testing with Shamira, aside from the ones that I did on the Pioneer server. I think one potential issue with Shamira is also that even if you are able to make her ultimate, and if the enemy team is like quite tanky, so if they have something like Ludovic and Fresto, and if Shamira is your only damage dealer, the ultimate will spread between all of the enemy heroes, and then it is possible that she's not able to kill anyone. So that's why I feel like you kind of need a second damage dealer in that team. So that would be something like Cyran, for example.
Brighten up the battlefield.
Nothing to be afraid of.
Everything.
Evil has been cleansed. Potions for sale. Buy 4, get 1 free.
So this is just like a burst team where you target some of the easy to kill targets and then you snowball from there. So if you're using something like Harak, for example, then you want to like burst down a couple of the enemies and then Harak will get more powerful and then usually Harak is able to like finish the fight. And same is kind of true with Athalia. The thing about these teams is that it can't be used against all teams because if the enemy placement is such that you can't like easily target those squishy heroes, then you probably can't use heroes like Sylvina. And if they have like healers with Ludovic on their team, then Ludovic, like I said, will stun your melee heroes. So then you are gonna be a lot slower to kill the enemy teams. But if you have like wide enough roster, you can usually make these teams work. If the enemy teams allows you to use something like Rainier, for example, and then you Rainier in one of your carry heroes, and then you have Gerda, so that Gerda will like remove the potential stuns from your carry heroes, or if you have Dunlinger who will like prevent your enemy heroes from healing or whatever, then these teams can definitely be effective.
Victory is ours! Victory is ours!
Evil has been cleansed.
Victory!
So yeah, that's it. Hopefully this was helpful. I also do have some of these like images of teams that I have used to beat specific teams, and at least they should work against those specific placements. So I will also have them on the document, the Google document with all of these other images. So if you want to take a look at those, they will be on the document. I'm not gonna go over them here because there are quite a few of these images, but just kind of like teams that I know that should work against some like specific teams.